Today's episode is brought to us by Ombraz sunglasses. They are armless, they have a cord, they are amazing. I love mine. I can take them anywhere. They won't fall off while I mountain bike. And if you would like to get a pair, go to Instagram, find Ombraz, Ombraz, send them a message, and they're giving away 3 free pair this month. Something else I like to take with me anywhere is a couple packs of CS instant coffee. If I can't drag along all my coffee equipment, I do have that option to have incredible coffee in the backcountry or anywhere I go. Go to csinstant.coffee and use the code ADVENTURE at checkout for a discount on their incredible instant coffee.
The Landry line is over 4,000 vertical feet of skiing to the valley floor, and it doesn't get much better than that. And, you know, the fact that it's pretty steep the whole way down is just an amazing ski.
This is the Adventure Sports Podcast, trying to help you find adventure every day in any stage of life. You're going to hear from explorers, adventurers, business owners, and anyone living their life a little more out of the box than usual. I'm pretty stoked about today's episode. If you thought climbing all the 14ers was difficult and or fun, a lot of you know I tried to climb all the 14ers at once a few summers ago. Did not go to plan. Probably never going to try to do that again. Well, today we have Brittany and Frank Konsella, and they skied all of the Colorado 14ers. And by the way you define it, you know, there's either 54 or 58 of the 14ers. I actually haven't listened to this episode, so I'm listening to it for the first time along with you. And, you know, ski season's just about here in Colorado, just with the amount of snow that we're getting. I know that there's already been weekends that it's been open, but this is crazy. And I know that the 14ers are a huge bucket list item for a lot of people here in Colorado. It's honestly a lifelong pursuit for a lot of us. I know I've knocked out about half of them, got another half to go. So I'm excited to hear about someone who's doing it in a totally different way than I'm used to. So I hope you enjoy, hope it inspires you, hope it gets you excited to get out there, have some fun. And please, this is pretty extreme, so please be careful when you, with the inspiration that this show gives you. Don't go out there and do something stupid. All right, we'll talk to y'all on Monday. Have a great weekend.
Hello and welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. This is your host, Kurt Linville. Today is a really cool show. Now, if you go back in the archives, you'll find that we interviewed Jerry Roach about climbing all the 14ers, writing the 14er book, as well as climbing mountains all over the world. We also interviewed Jeff Golden with the Colorado Mountain Club about climbing all the 14ers. But today we have a couple, Brittany and Frank Konsella, who not only have climbed all the 14ers, but they're one of the few, or two of the few, on the planet that can say that they've actually skied all the 14ers. Brittany and Frank, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. I am really excited about today's show because it combines probably my two favorite sports, skiing and 14ers. And skiing the 14ers, I mean, it's got to be just crazy. But before we dive into the details of that, Brittany grew up in Ohio. She started skiing at the age of 4. She ended up coming to Colorado and was a freestyle competitor at Winter Park. And then Frank grew up in the Front Range of Colorado, started skiing when he was 3, and he was also a ski racer at Winter Park, but they did not meet there. They met because of skiing the 14ers. And I would like them to introduce themselves and tell us that story. So take it from there, Brittany.
So basically, in 2006, I came up with this goal of trying to ski all of Colorado's 14ers. Chris Davenport was in the middle of his 14er skiing goal as well. So I was certainly inspired by that. However, when I began my goal, I didn't really have very many backcountry ski partners that could actually help me accomplish it. You need to have a lot of skills, more mountaineering skills. And I didn't really, know very many people who had that. So I had to reach out to some people. And one of those people that I reached out to was Frank. And that's basically how we met. I was looking for partners to help me ski all the 14ers.
So, Frank, what's your angle on that story?
I was already living in Crested Butte and I had actually already climbed, hiked all the 14ers when I was at CU. I had finished, in high school too. So I had already done all that, and I was just kind of skiing whatever I felt like. And the way that we really met is that some friends and I had skied Pyramid, and we were one of the first groups to do so. So we ended up with this little blurb on Lou Dawson's website, Wild Snow. And that's actually, Brittany saw that and was like, oh, one of those guys could probably ski some of the 14ers with me. And that's actually the longer version. So,
and the even longer version is that I ended up cyber stalking him and found his information. I found his information on the Teton Gravity Research ski forums, and I was already well connected on that ski forum, and found out he was on there and reached out to him through there.
Well, that's fun. And as far as I know, you're the only couple on the planet who met because you like to ski 14ers.
Yep.
Could be the case.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other couples involved, they definitely already knew each other when they started their projects. Which is cool too, just to be able to share that project. But we definitely met because of this project.
Let's talk about skiing 14ers. First of all, for those who don't know much about 14ers, you can listen to those previous episodes and you'll learn a ton about the sport of climbing 14ers. And then if you want to learn about backcountry skiing and some of the skills involved to do that safely, then you can listen to our episode by Greg Floyd about backcountry skiing. But combining these two sports together is really unique. So, Frank, tell us a little bit about what the 14er sport is and what special skills are required to be able to ski some of these mountains.
Well, that's what makes it kind of interesting and fun. It does involve mountaineering. So climbing up them actually ended up being the harder part for me. As you mentioned earlier, I've got a long ski background growing up racing and growing up in Colorado. And I did, I've done, like anyone in Colorado, I've dabbled in some rock climbing and whatnot. And I had climbed all the 14ers in the summer, but getting to the tops of the peaks is kind of the harder part, and getting them, when they're in shape to ski. So there's all those different facets, and you're trying to combine them all in order to make for a good climb and ski, which is the challenging part and actually the fun part. And it makes it a little bit of a chess game in addition to just, the actual physical aspects.
I have climbed several of the 14ers in the wintertime, but I've only skied 2 of them. And I didn't climb them on skis. For the most part, I'm usually on snowshoes. But I find that access is one of the hardest things because, the roads that go to the trailheads are blocked off by the snowdrifts generally through the winter. So how do you solve that problem? Maybe, Brittany, you'd like to take this one.
Well, you try to time your when you want to actually climb the peak to when those roads are open, if possible. I mean, we didn't climb all of them in the winter for that reason. Sometimes we knew that certain lines would be better to access in the spring because, trying to deal with some of those road closures. There are other instances where we use that road closure to our favor and sometimes accessed the actual trailhead using snowmobiles. We'd go up on the road that had snow that could normally drive in the summer, but since it had snow cover on it, we would take snowmobiles instead.
Oh, that would help. Yeah.
We didn't do that a whole lot. We did it only a few times, but it definitely helped.
Cool. Let's talk about the season for this a little bit. I do know that people ski 14ers every month of the year, and it's not just a winter sport. But when you say that you've skied a 14er, did you establish any guidelines like I have to ski a certain percentage of the 14er or I have to do it a certain time of the year or anything like that?
The time of the year wasn't necessarily, important to us. I think our range was typically started from November and into June. But most of them we actually, I feel like, did in March, April, May, I think, probably.
Yeah, the vast majority were those 3 months, and June, the first week or so of June.
And as far as establishing what we considered skiing a 14er to be, I'd say we tried to ski at least 1,000 feet. I really tried to prefer more like 1,300 feet at a minimum.
And for the listeners who may not know, the 14ers have a variety of base elevations, and some of them you start hiking at 10,000 feet. Some of them you start hiking at 5,000 feet. So you can, some of them have 9,000 vertical feet of elevation gain, and some of them only have a few thousand that you can actually hike up or ski down. So if you're skiing 1,000 feet, then that's a pretty good run.
Yeah, if there was snow cover, we always try to ski more, but sometimes there wasn't quite enough snow cover, or there's some that you end up skiing together, such as Oxford and Belford. So, we would try to ski 1,000 to 1,300 feet before we started going up and climbing up to the next mountain.
Okay, so you tried to go down and then back up again to go down again when you had the combo mountain routes.
Yeah. Most summer climbers, like say on Oxford Belford, they'll climb one, they'll just take the ridge between the two. We tried to do a little bit more than that, but it was usually kind of a case by case basis. If you're skiing a face and then it goes down into the valley and it's no longer really skiing, even though you could continue down a valley. Once the turns are done, we kind of called it good and would start up for the next one. But
all right, so the Colorado 14ers, they can all be climbed without putting on ropes and being technical in the summertime in good conditions. Some of them, like Pyramid that you mentioned, are pretty sketchy. People do rope up for Pyramid sometimes. And when you climb those in the winter, though, that's a whole nother ball game. How much mountaineering skill did you have to perfect before you were able to start doing these?
Well, and I kind of mentioned that earlier. That's kind of the weak point for both of us is the mountaineering versus the skiing. But we both had a good, background and continued to learn on as we did it too. And in some cases with snow cover, it can actually be easier. Little Bear is commonly described as one of the more difficult 14ers in the summer, but in good snow cover, it's actually, just climbing snow with crampons and an ice axe. And it's actually, I think, probably easier having done them in both seasons. So, well.
To improve our mountaineering skills, I think that was something we kind of worked at. For me, it was a 5-year project, so I definitely kind of worked on improving my mountaineering skills along the way. I did take some ice climbing courses, which really helped on more icy and exposed terrain. It helped me feel more comfortable using my crampons correctly, even when I wasn't roped up. We did definitely rope up for Capitol. Frank and I ended up skiing that peak separate. But in both cases, both teams of skiers did rope up. It does require a rappel on the route that we took. So just, being familiar with rope handling and ice climbing and things like that, they're not absolutely necessary until you get to something like Capitol, but I think it really, really does help to have some of those skills, a solid foundation for those skills.
So you made an interesting point there that you had to rappel a little bit on the route that you did on Capitol to get to the run that you wanted to do. How hard is it to find a safe and reasonable route to ski these 14ers?
A lot of them do have kind of a standard route or even multiple standard routes. Many of them are in Lou Dawson's guidebooks. And then along the way, people have been finding different routes and better routes. When I skied Capitol, that was the first time that route had been skied from the summit. And then it's kind of ended up becoming the standard route. A good friend of ours, Jarrett Luttrell, he's the first one to snowboard all the 14ers. And the route that he took on El Diente, no one really knew about it. I'm sure some locals down in that Telluride area probably did, but so he ended up snowboarding that and told us about it, and we went back and did it. That was actually the second time I skied El Diente, but whatever the case, that's kind of ended up becoming a very popular route on that peak as well. So it's been interesting to watch kind of a progression really of where people are skiing on the 14ers.
I know this is an ad, but this is actually how I feel. Ombraz sunglasses are amazing. They're armless, and they just have a cord that connects the frame around your head, and my son can't pull them off my head like he pulls my other sunglasses off. They won Backpackers Magazine Gear Editor's Gear Choice of the Year. They plant 20 trees for every pair they sell. And honestly, guys, I wear them every day. I take them everywhere I go. I just wore them cycling the other day on a long trip. They just perform great. I love that there's no arms on them. I slip them in the pocket of my shirt or in my pants. I don't have to worry about breaking them. Fantastic glasses. I don't have to worry about them coming off if I'm wrestling around with my son or playing with my dogs. I really do enjoy them, and I'm going to be buying more for myself for the foreseeable future. I mean, they've totally changed the way I look at sunglasses. You can check them out too at ombraz.com, OMBRAZ.com. They make a great Christmas gift. I know you can't always make coffee the way you want to in a lot of the places that we go, in the backcountry or on top of a mountain somewhere. But the good news is there is a great option for coffee in the backcountry, and it's CS Instant Coffee. They make big pouches that fill, 20-ounce containers with fresh coffee. Just put some hot water in there and you're good to go, or put cold water in there and then you can have some cold brew. They use 100% compostable packaging, so just in case you dropped it, please don't, but if you did, it's going to biodegrade into the ground. It's great for backcountry travel or any time you just don't feel like breaking out the coffee maker or the French press or whatever. I actually use them all the time just in my house when I don't feel like making a big pot of coffee. So check them out at csinstant.coffee and use the code ADVENTURE at checkout to get a discount.
Avalanches are a very real danger at altitude, especially in the wintertime. And choosing a route that you can ski without having the mountain come down on you seems pretty important. What precautions did you practice to try to stay safe?
I think the primary precaution is being able to forecast avalanche conditions to begin with. We were always on CIAC and NOAA and watching the weather and, near peaks that we knew we had to ski. So we were always forecasting what we thought the avalanche conditions would be. That's the number one priority thing. You need to be able to forecast that sort of thing. Then, of course, when you're actually on the mountain itself, just timing is important. A lot of times in the springtime, you're not so worried about the same kind of avalanches in the winter. So, a lot of times we would time our descents for spring rather than winter, because in spring you have less of a chance of a deeper slab avalanche and more of a chance of possibly wet slides. However, the wet slides are usually easily avoided by just going earlier and making sure you're not on the mountain later in the day. And then, of course, just taking precautions like skiing one at a time and stopping in safe zones along the way.
Right. I tried to climb Mount Sherman in the wintertime. Many people would agree is the easiest 14er. And we had, I think, a 9-mile approach just to get to the trailhead on the route that we chose. And it had been snowing a lot. And on this approach, there were avalanche runouts on both sides of the valley, probably by the dozen. I mean, just a lot of avalanches have been coming down. And we were trying to stay off the avalanche terrain, but somewhere near the saddle, the final shoulder to the approach, the whole mountain sank about a foot and shifted and stopped. And man, we ran and dove to grab some solid rocks to hang on to because we thought the whole thing was going with us. And it shook me up a little bit, to be really candid. I don't know if you had similar experiences, but it made me really keenly aware of how easy it is to get into trouble on these mountains like that.
Yeah, that's why we chose, I think, to ski a lot of them in the spring when avalanche danger, you wouldn't get, basically you wouldn't even get that sort of conditions where a lot of times, where the whole mountain would just collapse on you like that.
Yeah, it was probably our own faults being foolhardy. We didn't forecast it enough. The avalanche danger was clearly too high that day, and it was snowing. And so we had poor visibility to boot. So long story short, I did not summit that day, which is probably good. We just decided to get off the mountain and choose a safe route to do so. And we came back the next summer and climbed it and kind of laughed that was the first 14er to turn us around, was the easiest 14er in Colorado.
It's not always as easy in the winter, so you had that going for you.
Well, it just shows you how important conditions, are, try to plan your trip to optimize your success to have the best conditions that you can.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Why would you encourage people to try skiing the 14ers?
I don't know if I'd necessarily encourage anyone to do it unless they wanted to, for one. But, if you're a good, strong skier and you've got some mountaineering skills, then it's an awfully fun way to go about it. With in the summer, they've become so popular. You're going to, you'll be on the summit with 10, 20, 100, maybe even 100 people. In spring, in the winter, while you're skiing, it's pretty likely you'll be the only group on them, or, even on some of the popular ones, maybe there's just going to be one or two other groups at least. And of course, skiing down beats walking down.
Oh, man. Walking down is so hard on the joints. My knees struggle a little bit with the walks down. And in the wintertime, when I can glissade or ski, I just like, wow, that was awesome. You get down so fast.
Yep. The other thing to mention is I think we're more proponents of just having some sort of goals to follow. I think more than just skiing the 14ers, it's just so important to have goals. It just helps you accomplish so many things in certain areas of your life. And when you do accomplish those goals, it makes you feel successful, and that transfers to other aspects as well. So, whether somebody's skiing the 14ers or they've decided on a different sort of goal, I think having a goal like that is that we encourage that more, actually.
That's really neat. That's a common theme on the Adventure Sports podcast. It's not just a matter of accomplishing your adventure sport goal, because what you end up doing is gaining so much new self-awareness and understanding and new skills, and you find out that you can do more than you thought you could, and that translates to the rest of life. So I think getting out there and doing things and having goals like you described is a fantastic way to make life richer and more enjoyable. And it's not just about the sport itself.
Exactly.
Tell us a story about a very amazing experience that you had on a 14er, skiing a 14er, and tell us what it's really like. This is when we want to have the camcorder out, right? And we want the play-by-play. So, Brittany, why don't you go first?
Well, both Frank and I say that our most favorite 14er is Pyramid Peak. Frank has now skied it twice. I've only had the opportunity to ski it once. But, it just stands out as the best descent ever. Leading up to it, I had actually tried it a couple times before and had not been successful. Once because I was just too tired from having done another ski the day before, and basically had not slept between the two skis. And it was a really cold day, and my water froze, and all the things were just telling me I needed to turn around. So I did. Went back a couple years later, and then we actually got shut down by some bad weather that came in a little bit earlier than was forecasted. So finally, third time was the charm, and it ended up being my second to last 14er. And it was something that I was looking forward to the whole time. I knew it was going to be a good ski. Everybody told me it was, such an awesome peak. You look at all the photos of other people skiing it, and I just knew it was going to be, awesome. The ascent went pretty much as planned. I'd been most of the way up that mountain before. Just had to get to the top. Definitely there's a crux move as you're ascending, where the rocks are pretty loose. It's a little icy. But that crux is only about 5 minutes or maybe 10 from what I remember. And the rest of the climb is just fun. And then once you're at the top, you see the line below you and it just drops off into nowhere. Like it rolls over. It's pretty steep. Some people say it's 60 degrees. I think it's probably more like 55, but it's that total airy feeling where it rolls over and you feel like you're skiing into an abyss. And then you just start skiing down and, it's steep for a long ways until you get to a crux. And we actually descend a different line than we ascended. We descended via the Landry line, whereas we ascended more the summer route. So when you descend, we didn't actually know exactly what conditions were going to be. And this crux point is kind of important because it gets just a little tight in there. And sometimes it's the first part to melt out in the line. So you're never totally sure if it actually goes or not. But it did for us and we skied right through it. And then from there on out, it gets a little less steep, but it's still a fun ski all the way down. The Landry line is over 4,000 vertical feet of skiing to the valley floor. And it doesn't get much better than that. And, the fact that it's pretty steep the whole way down is just an amazing ski.
Wow. Having climbed Pyramid, I have to say that's the one that stood out to me as I don't know what their line was that you skied. I don't know what the route was or what it looks like with snow on it. But the summer route that I took, where you go through the saddle and wrap around the backside of the mountain, then zigzag up all the different rock shelves to get to the top. With enough snow, that might be awesome, but I'm just looking at it going, wow, that could be really, really gnarly. So were you skiing more of the front side of the mountain on the way down?
We were skiing the east side.
Yeah, so it's the opposite of what's normally climbed in the North Amphitheater. It's on the other side to the East Maroon Valley.
Right. Okay. But you didn't ascend there, you descended there.
Correct.
Yep.
Well, that does sound fantastic. That's just a spectacular peak. It's the only mountain where I've seen someone take a fall that would have killed him, but he fell onto a rope, luckily. It's also the only mountain where mountain goats almost killed me because they triggered a rock slide above us.
Wow.
So it's just a crazy mountain all the way around. Well, Frank, what's your story?
Boy, that's how I've been trying to think about it. I'm having a really hard time because just a flood of memories comes back at me, and maybe that actually kind of answers the question you asked previously about why you might want to ski the 14ers. And I just have all these different memories of there was going up to Lindsay, and there's a little there's like a little crevice in the rocks, and there's all these crucifixes and stuff. So you feel like you're in Mexico. For some reason, that always comes back to me as this really stark memory of that trip. And I really remember actually skiing the Dead Dog route, which is very popular on Torreys. And I was still in college at that point, so I was skiing that on 205 skinny skis because that was a long time ago.
Right.
Just every mountain range, I have all these different memories, and that's why you do it because it does get you out of as we talked about, it forces you to go out and do all these different things. And I have all these different memories of them, and some of them don't even necessarily have to do with the skiing. I mean, I remember pulling over after a successful ski down the San Luis Valley, and there was just a sunset, and I was just like, wow, I got to pull over and just enjoy this moment. So I don't know, maybe that's not the answer you were looking for, but that's all I could keep thinking of was all the different memories and all these little snippets that came along the way.
Well, no, that's a great answer. And again, it's about adventure sports. Whatever we're doing, if it gets us outside, it gets us to new locations where we see things we wouldn't see otherwise. It's just amazing what experiences you have when you have an excuse to get out, right?
Right, exactly. And out of your home range, which, that's the other great thing about it. If you live in Denver and you're always skiing Berthoud Pass or whatever, that's great, but it's great to, suddenly find yourself in the San Juans or the Elks or wherever.
Some people kind of minimize the scariness of skiing in extreme conditions, and other people like to brag about it. I can tell you guys are being pretty humble. You're not telling us a whole lot about it, but I'm giving you license here How extreme is this? How dangerous do you think this really is?
And it is absolutely dangerous because in the end, you're skiing without a rope. And so you're just connected to two skis with bindings, and those bindings can, come off, and you can catch an edge and you can cross a tip or whatever. And if you're exposed and it's icy enough, and you're going to start sliding in a hurry, and it's going to be bad. And so it is. And the same thing on the climbing. I mean, you've got your crampon, you got your ice axe, and that's it. One little slip and you start moving too quick, and it's gonna be hard to self-arrest. So it is, and you just have to have confidence in your knowledge and your skills, and concentrate on the moment at hand, I guess, is kind of how people do it.
Yeah. I skied Evans, which I mentioned to you before the show, and broke my thumb at the top, so I had to ski with a broken thumb. And I was on the 200 skinnies, not the 205s, but the 200 skinnies. So it's jump turns and a really tight couloir with a drop if you miss your turn, about 100 feet of air, maybe more. And I have to say that I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. But looking back on it, I think, wow, what if more had gone wrong and I had gone off that drop? And so I don't know. How do you deal with, Brittany? How did you deal with those possibilities?
Well, I think, every time you're skiing something and, on a 14er especially, it's a no fall zone. So you don't even think about falling. Thankfully, I think Frank and I have very solid ski foundations where that never even crossed our minds a lot of times. And then we ski here in Crested Butte all the time and in bounds, and that is one of the best training grounds for some of the steeper terrain for that. So we're just kind of accustomed to being in that situation, and it just doesn't cross our minds anymore. But something in your case, you mentioned that you actually jumped down to a point where you felt you could put on your skis. Well, we probably wouldn't have even put ourselves in that situation. We would have actually put our skis on in the top, then sidestep down rocks if we needed to get to a point where we needed to ski. We would have sacrificed our skis instead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Be in a safer position. So you just get used to making those choices, and it becomes such second nature that we don't think about it that much anymore.
I think a lot of it comes from having just really good skiing skills. And in Crested Butte, you couldn't pick a better place to earn those skills.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So give us a quick rundown, just because you mentioned it. Crested Butte is an amazing ski town in central Colorado. Some people might say it's southwest Colorado. But tell us a little bit about what it's like to live in Crested Butte and to ski at that ski area, and then the backcountry skiing in the area too.
Well, yeah, I've been here in Crested Butte for 20 years now, actually, straight out of college, and it's where I chose to live because of the steep terrain that you can't really find anywhere else in Colorado. And it did help, as we're talking about now. There's a lot of steep skiing here where you are exposed, and you could fall off a cliff or whatever. And it's just a great lifestyle. I mean, a lot of people move here and they take a pay cut, but their quality of life increases because we don't have traffic, we don't have crime, we don't really have we're just kind of here, and if we're going downtown, we jump on the bus and just, it's pretty easy living here in a lot of ways. Maybe not financially, but in most ways, it's just good to be here. And then of course in the summer we've got all the mountain biking and hiking, and going back to the skiing, the backcountry here is, I mean, it's tough to beat. The area to the west of here, Kebler Pass, Irwin, gets as much snow as anywhere in Colorado. It's regularly 500 inches or more a year, and that gives us a good solid snowpack in general compared to thinner areas. So it's a good place to be.
It's an amazing place.
We're so lucky too, because we live right across the street from the ski area. We live in a very tiny place, but it's a 5-minute walk to get to the chairlift. And, we can take our bikes right out of our door and be on some of the best single track in the world. So, it's pretty amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that's just a dream life. One of the common themes we also hear is that people decided to opt out of the standard American dream, with the job and the 4,000 square foot house and the 2.5 kids and the dog and the long commutes and crazy hours at the office. A lot of our guests have said, no, that's not the life I want. And there's sacrifices involved. You mentioned that, living in a mountain town like Crested Butte, it's harder to earn a lot of money, but the benefits there, you're living a richer life. If people wanted to consider an alternative to this standard American dream to live a more adventure-filled life, what advice would you have for them?
It's just such a choice. Like, for us, the American dream is not a dream at all. Like, that just seems so stifling to us. We need to be in the outdoors. We need that, if you take that away from us, that just kind of kills who we are. So, I think everything is a conscientious choice. Since then, I've had friends who have come up to me and said, hey, you moved across the Butte, do you love it? Do you think you made the right choice? And I've always said, yes, it's the best choice I ever made in my life besides marrying Frank. But, and then I'll have other friends come up to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about moving to a ski town. What do you think of that? And I say, do it. And they're like, oh, well, I think that's going to be my plan in 5 years. And I say, no, you got to do it now. If you want to do it, do it as soon as you can, because the longer you wait to make big changes in your life, the harder it becomes, because you just become more accustomed and more comfortable with your situation. So if you know that you want to be in a different place, I say just make that change as soon as reasonably possible.
It's like Warren Miller said, if you don't do it now, you'll be one day older when you do. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to the show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.